Hello guys and welcome back to the 2023-24 SDPN NHL season previews. Now we go on to the St. Louis Blues, a team that has had a mixed offseason to say the least. But after missing the playoffs last year, can they get back to the playoffs in a crowded Central? We're going to be answering all of those questions, dissecting all of their offseason, and seeing what's next for St. Louis. But before we get into that, let's first shout out today's sponsor in Sports Interaction. Get in on the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction. Baseball is going strong as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. Bet before the game or live and in play with all your favorite teams. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN or download the app to get started. 19 plus, and please play responsibly. Now for the Blues, after trading Ryan O'Reilly and players like Vladimir Tarasenko and also Ivan Barbashev at the trade deadline, this offseason didn't exactly attempt to replace those players whatsoever. When we look at the additions they made, you got Kevin Hayes as really the main one, getting him for a 6th round pick, solid value there, but he is pure offense. 54 points in 81 games this last year, but of course got sabbed by John Tortorella in the past. He's a player that is going to bring offense, but at a cost of one-dimensionality. You also got Oscar Sundqvist, who was recently with the Minnesota Wild, got 7 points, 15 regular season games there. Should be a solid third-line producer back in St. Louis, like he always should be, though. And as for the big subtraction, really the only one is maybe Thomas Greiss, who retires. He was a backup with St. Louis, wasn't all too great, so not too big of a loss. But really their biggest losses were from the trade deadline that last year, where they sold a bunch and didn't really recoup the points and the wins that they lost. And again, man, this is a team that had Barbashev, Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko for a lot of the season and only finished with 81 points in 82 games. With how much better teams like Arizona are looking, how much better teams like Nashville are looking, I just don't see many areas where the Blues are able to enter that wild card race. Now, when we look at the players to watch for St. Louis, there's 3 guys that really come to mind if the Blues are going to make the playoffs that really need to step up in a huge way and really are going to have great seasons if they are going to make it. The first player I have is Jacob Vrana, who of course was acquired by St. Louis from Detroit last year, and in 20 games the Blues got 10 goals, 14 points, looked like the Jacob Vrana that we all knew and loved and had missing for a very long time. If he's able to have that type of production in St. Louis, he'll obviously be on that top 6 on that power play. We could see a pretty special season out of him, and that's the type of offense St. Louis could really use. Now for my second player to watch, I got Robert Thomas, who had a interesting year last season. After having 77 points and 57 assists in 72 games, he went on and had a 65-point season in 73 games. Definitely a bit of a downgrade, and the consistency was just poor. It was just sad to watch. There were times where it was dry, it was barren, and there were times where Robert Thomas was playing fantastic, was getting multiple point games, was looking amazing, but that consistency for the Blues will be ever important. If he's going to be the first line center, if he's going to be a point per game, more type of guy, more consistency has to be had. Thomas needs to take that next step if the Blues are going to be a playoff team here. And going on to my third player to watch for the Blues this next season, this one was pretty obvious to me and might be one of the most important players heading into next season, and that is Joel Hofer. 23-year-old goaltender, drafted in the 4th round back in 2018, has quickly become one of the most important assets in this Blues organization. Last year, after having a great season in the AHL, he played 6 games, getting a .905 save percentage, a 3-1-1 record, and looked great. Behind Jordan Binnington, maybe Binnington starts as the starter, but I would not be surprised at all if Joel Hofer is the Blues starter by the end of things. We'll see if that results in a playoff berth, but to me, Hofer is the future of this Blues net, and it could start this season as the starter in St. Louis. Now let's go through grade the forwards, defense, goaltending here for the St. Louis Blues. And to me, the forward group is likely going to be the best part of this Blues roster. Already has been recently, but this year will absolutely be the big strength. When you look at it, that top 6 is interesting with players like Robert Thomas, Pavel Buchnevich hopefully being 100% healthy and awesome like he always is. Jordan Kyrou still being around a point per game and still being great. You have that second line, which maybe could have Jacob Vrana instead of Kasperi Kapanen. That bottom 6 has some really interesting options like Sammy Blais, Jake Neighbors, and players like Alexei Toropchenko, who are pretty underrated in their own right. So overall, it's a forward group that has some decent depth, has some okay star power if those players rise up to the talent they have. I'm going to give the forward group a B. It's definitely not a weakness and is probably their biggest strength. But now we go on to the defense, and this is a much different story. Even though the names here are really interesting, Leddy, Parayko, Krug, Falk, Scandella, Bortuzzo, putting it all together was a massive problem last year, and the defense was awful last year. I mean, players like pretty much everybody on that defense wasn't playing up to their potential, wasn't playing up to the status that they once had. That desperately needs to change if you're the Blues. And to me, as of right now, I'm going to give them a C+, but it's a defense that could still get a little bit worse because of aging, but hopefully has a rebounding season. To me, that defense is going to be pivotal to their success. And then let's go to the goaltending, which is going to be interesting because I do see Joel Hofer rising above and becoming the starter. I'm just not sure how good he will be immediately. I think he'll be solid. I think he'll be competent, which will surely outshine what Jordan Binnington has done recently with the Blues. So I think he'll end up getting that starter job, but still not being a number one in the Calder candidacy, for instance. I think he'll be solid, though, and up there for sure. As for now, I'm going to give the goaltending a C+. Binnington, we'll have to wait and see what this next year has in store, but really he hasn't rebounded in any way recently over like the past 3 seasons. We've been waiting for a rebound season out of him, and it's just never happened. Joel Hofer is the future, though, and hopefully he makes that tandem a little bit better. But going on this Blues team, and the biggest question mark for me, it will be, can that defense finally turn a page? Now, the assistant coach that was in charge of the defense, Mike Van Ryn, was fired right after last season ended, so they don't really have much confidence in him afterwards. He's gone, and that might be the only source of optimism for this Blues defense. They got a lot of names and a lot of players that have aged quite a bit, but maybe a change in the coaching staff is exactly what they needed. That would be instrumental to the Blues' success, and that, to me, turning that around will be one of the biggest reasons, if they make the playoffs, why they made the playoffs, and that needs to happen. I don't quite see too much change really happening there, and to me, I think this is a Blues team that is kind of in no man's land, especially considering how better that middle of the Central Division is getting. To me, I think the Blues could end up being even worse than last season in some ways, and to me, I see them finishing with 78 to 83 points on the year, 7th in the Central Division, just because of the competition around them. It could be a pretty brutal year here for the St. Louis Blues, and right in the middle of the NHL, exactly where you don't want to be. But let me know in the comments down below, am I wrong about this Blues team? Are they a playoff team again? Can they reach those heights? Let us know all your thoughts down below. Of course, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell if you guys are enjoying these season previews. 32 teams in 32 days, and next up we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, so we hope to see you there for that. Thank you so much for watching. Drink some water, have a great day, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.